Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and I'm from Idilapa. Welcome to Idilapa webinar today. So Idilapa is a cloud-based computer lab that facilitates simple to complex lab environment for IT courses. Idilapa makes it easy for students to engage in practical IT learning online and trainers to monitor the progress and assess the evidence in real time. Idilapa provides an alternative option for having a physical lab and brings infinity flexibility and scalability for education providers. Today, the Idilapa is about how to deliver cybersecurity-focused IT courses. In the webinar, we'll be showing you the list of units of competencies suitable for cybersecurity studies, some samples of cybersecurity activities using Idilapa portal, and lastly, we'll be providing information on how Idilapa collects assessment evidence and supports the authenticity of students' work. The webinar will be delivered by Matt from Idilapa, who is an expert in system integration and network security. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So hi, everyone. I see as well some familiar names here. So thanks for joining us again. So firstly, quickly, what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is a practice of protecting systems and networks and applications from cyber attacks that are aimed at individuals or organizations. So cyber attacks, when successful, they can access, change, or destroy your sensitive information with a purpose to extort money or interrupt normal business processes. The cyber attacks come in different types. Therefore, students will need to be exposed in a number of different cybersecurity activities and resources to get familiar with them. A few types of attacks we're going to mention today is as phishing, malware, password guessing or cracking. Then we have USB drop attacks, distributed denial of services, social engineering. One that I didn't mention here is as well man-in-middle attack that we're going to have a look as well in a demo later on. So phishing is the practice of sending emails that appear to be from a trusted source and with a goal of gaining personal information. Let's say your banking credentials, yeah? Or tricking the users to do something silly. Example, opening a fake invoice where there's actually a malware inside. It combines social engineering and technical trickery. Then we have malware. So malware can be a virus, which it infects executable files and it spreads across the network. We have worms, which they're similar to viruses, except they don't infect other files. They actually just spread over the network. Trojans, they are disguised in legitimate software, and then they do something naughty and behind the scene. Ransomware, we heard this one a lot in the news. So what it does, it's actually encrypts, or in other words, destroys your documents. And we have as well spyware. Next type of attacks, it's password guessing or cracking. We can do brute force attacks. We can do dictionary attacks. So meaning, in other words, guessing. So this is something that I extremely recommend that everyone has a strong, longer passwords. Yeah. So nothing that contains your name or pets' names or date of birthdays. So yeah, Michelle, leave your longer passwords next time. Then we have USB drop attacks. A couple of times I got across that there was a USB thumb drive lying on a parking lot. I don't know what's on it, and if it was just a lost USB thumb drive or it was something more on purpose. Denial of services or distributed denial of services. This is a method to overwhelm the system resources so it cannot respond to the service request. Attacks can be launched on a large scale of other computers. We call them zombies. So they're infected with a malicious software, which is controlled by attacker. One of the methods is TCP sync flood attacks, teardrop attacks, or lastly, lately, I think as well, Smurf attack. And last one that we're going to mention here is social engineering. So what it is, it's actually a psychological manipulation of people into performing actions or revealing confidential information. So types of hackers. We have three types of hackers in the tech world. So let's start with the black hat hackers. These are the hackers who violate computer security for personal gain. Example, they would be stealing financial information, logging credentials, uploading malware, and as well seeking to destroy data so they can ransom. Then we have white hat hackers, which they use, or we use, our skills for the power of good. We're also known as ethical hackers. Although hacking techniques are the same, ethical hackers do it with the permission of the owner of the IT systems and for the purpose to identify the vulnerabilities. And of course, between black and white, there's always something gray, yeah? So we have gray hat hackers, which they are a blend of both. Often gray hat hackers will look for vulnerabilities in the system without the owners or vendors' permissions. However, will not exploit the found vulnerabilities. Instead, they will report them to the owner and sometimes requesting a fee to fix them. Okay, that's about the hackers. So where do RTOs and students come in? So RTOs are there to train students to become ethical hackers. To gain the knowledge and skills, students need to be exposed to learning resources and lab environments where students can identify the vulnerabilities in the system with the similar methods used in the real hacking. Yeah? These methods are reconnaissance, which is gathering information without authorization. Then we have scanning. That's actually scanning the networks for vulnerabilities. We have access, or I'm going to say in other words, exploits of the system. Exfiltration. This is when hackers steal data. Sustainments. This is a backdoor. This is a creation of backdoor, so hackers, they can revisit the compromised systems at later stage. We have assault. It's to disrupt the services, let's say denial of services, yeah, and obfuscation, to disguise the attacker and activity and malware. So they try to hide themselves, that as administrators or white hat hackers, we can't find them. These methods can be practiced as part of fulfilling the elements of competency in the units I'm showing you here. Yeah? So of course, there's not one unit that covers all. However, a combination of few, it could bring the holistic activities of cybersecurity. So this one, it was for this one that you see suggested learning activities. They are for a diploma of information technology. And then we have as well listed units for advanced diploma of network security. Okay, so it's going to be time for a live demo. Of course, first a disclaimer. So hacking is illegal practice. If you do this on the systems you do not own, or you do not have the owner's permission to do so. So what I'll show you today is for educational purposes only. Okay, this is Idilapa portal. I pre-logged myself in as one of our test students. Here we can see a couple of components. We're going to have victims, which is extremely unpatched operating system, so it's great to do some attacks on it. We're going to have attackers on a Kali, where we're going to spend most of the time. I'm going to show you as well a few tricks as well on the Windows, and there's as well in between a firewall. So when I pop up all the Windows back up, we're going to go by the stages that I showed you on the slides earlier. Yeah. So we're going to skip the reconnaissance stage, as this is our network, so we don't need to do some external observations. So we're going to start actually with scanning. So what we have here, as I mentioned, it's Kali, which is open source Linux platform, and it's preloaded with a lot of applications to do searching and exploitations of vulnerabilities. So first tool what we're going to use is ZenMap. So it's actually a graphical interface of the Nmap. Yeah. So I'm going to go actually to ZenMap. I'm going to start it up. And the first thing what we do in scanning is, let's see who's out there. Yeah. I already know the network subnet, so we're going to a little bit speed up. So I'm going to go to our subnet 192.168.20.0, and we're going to do just a quick ping scan. So at first, we're going to just see which computers or host machines, servers, network equipment is actually out there. And when I start it, Nmap is going to start up behind the scene, and it's going to give us a report of live computers. So what we have here, we have a gateway, and then we have already a first machine that we actually start getting interest to. Yeah. So the second step is going to be, we're going to do a little bit more deep scanning. Yeah. So we want to understand which doors to this system are actually open. Yeah. Which ports. So I'm going to specify directly the IP of this machine, and I'm going to change the profile of the Quick Scan Plus. Once again, the process, it works in a background. In ZenMap, there's like just a little symbol here that's kind of wiggling, and that means actually it's doing something behind the scene. So in meanwhile, I can as well show you a little bit how the topology graph looks like. So it's kind of found we have like a local host, a small network where there's a couple of machines there. We have first one that we get in really good interest about. We have as well second virtual machine. We have gateway, and there out there it's as well a broadcast. So let's see. And we got some information out. So what this report showed us, yeah, that this is actually a Windows operating system. So this is one thing that we recognize from the scan. Yeah, it's actually very old version of Windows operating system. And then we can see as well that it has certain ports open. Yeah, so 445 TCP port is used for file sharing. Then here as well open, we see remote desktop ports. And there's as well some unknown ports they open that even I don't know what they're doing at the moment. From here down, yeah, we get more service information. So it's an old operating system. So what does that mean for us? If it's old system, that means it's most likely vulnerable to our attacks. Yeah, so being as a hacker is something that actually gets us our intention. So for next, Next stage. So I selected actually a victim that we're going to get interested into the server, meaning we're going to start using a second tool in Kali, and it calls Metasploit Framework. So Metasploit Framework, in other words, is a penetration testing platform which has a collection of pen test tools and real-world exploits. So we'll use this tool to execute an attack against our vulnerable computer. And what we're going to do here, so we saw earlier that there's a 445 port open, yeah, which is for file sharing. And back in the days, actually, it was discovered in October 2017. It's been discovered a huge security flaw called Eternal Blue. So, and why is this vulnerability so much fun? It's actually, it's extremely serious vulnerability because once exploited, it actually we actually gain super admin rights. That means we are above just standard administrative account. So as for a pen testing or playing around with cybersecurity, I mean, these vulnerabilities as well, something really interesting. So instead that I'm going to go and type each command, I'm going to actually copy and paste a few lines. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use exploitation that's Eternal Blue. And if successful, I'm going to send a payload to get a reverse command line. Yeah, so on my computer is going to actually show up command line of this machine. This is my Kali IP address. And I'm going to attack this host that we actually discovered earlier. Yeah? And what it is, we just call a command exploit. So I'm going to copy this thing in. It can take a couple of seconds to get through. It's actually a real vulnerability. So sometimes it's possible to exploit it. Sometimes we need to do it once or twice to actually get through. Let me show you in the meanwhile on a computer actually that we are attacking. Yeah, so I'm going to go to our victim's Windows unpatched computer, and first for starters, let's have a look about IP address. We can see it's actually 192.168.20.20, the one that we actually attacking. Yeah. And what we have here is we have some top secret documents. Yeah, and it's for my eye only. We can see that something crashed here. Yeah, when vulnerability. I mean, when we were able to exploit the computer. And within this, so to continue within this file, I just say, hey, here's actually my access to the bank credentials. Yeah, and my username is John Smith, and the password is my bank 123. Okay, so what happens once we actually exploited the computer? Now we have total control of this computer, yeah? And a couple of things that we can do is we can have a look what's on it. So let's go to our folder. Let's see, users, it's in administrator, desktop. No. I need to use the front slashes, so it's a little bit different syntax than from Windows. And if I say ls, it's like there's some top secret documents folder. We got interested about this file, of course. Let's have a look what's in it. So I'm gonna download it. And when it's finished, I'm going to go to our root document, and we're going to actually, we just downloaded the file that it was in the previous machine as a top secret. Second thing is we can as well see what's actually happening on a computer. Yeah, so we're just curious. So I'm going to take a screenshot of a computer. And here we have, yeah, so this victim's computer has open command prompt. Okay, so besides of that we attacked the security flaw, so as well second question is how to avoid to being exploited. So if I'm already showing you, how we can attack our computer, it's as well, I should tell you as well how to avoid, yeah. So one thing that we extremely recommend is always patch operating systems and network components to the latest releases, yeah. Second thing is harden your firewalls configuration. Limit how many people has administrative access to the system, and as well implement reputable antivirus and anti-ransom products. For next stage of our demo, it comes down to exfiltration. Oh yeah, that part I just actually done it. Yeah, so we took the documents. So after the exfiltration, we're gonna go to sustainment. So what we realized that this machine is vulnerable because it's an old operating system, and it's just a matter of time before sysadministrators depreciate this computer. So what hackers would do is they would search the ways to move to some other computers to create more permanent backdoor. And to do so, I mean, they would be trying to score some administrative credentials, yeah? And this thing would open the doors to different network components within the organization. So we're going to use again still with a Metasploit framework. We're going to ask actually to get all the hashes of the password. So what hash dump is? It's most of the time it is one-way encryption of your password. So if your password is something 1 to 3, at the end it actually ends up in a hash value like this. Yeah, so it's only one-way encryption. However, once you get a hash, you're gonna try to guess a password, and you're gonna do it so long time till the hashes match, and then that's actually how you guess the password. So I'm gonna use, so here I can see a few user accounts on a computer, yeah? And one of them is this John admin, and this is this user's hash. So I'm gonna copy this hash, and I'm gonna use the second tool within Kali, which is gonna help me to crack the password. So I'm gonna go under password attacks, and for our example, we're gonna use OPH crack. When it loads up, we have what we call it a table, which it has a lot of combinations, all kind of passwords. And this thing is quite huge on a hard drive. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna load this single hash. Once loaded, let's fire up. So let's say crack. Depends how a password is complex. This thing can take from little time to extremely long time, or from time that's not feasible actually to try to do brutal, what we call brutal force attack. So what brutal force attack is, you start AAAA, AAAB, AAAC, and so on. Yeah, so it can be a very long process. Or using things like tables where you have the most popular passwords that people use, yeah, in a system. So if you use some common passwords, it's most likely that it's going to get cracked. So as you can see, we succeeded, and we gained actual password of this computer, which is called password hash 1. So yeah, never use password in a password. It's going to be most likely get hacked. And once I get a password of admin, it's just a matter of time that I start moving on a network like in a lateral way and finding some quiet spot where I could install different kind of malware to create some backdoors so I could have access to the systems even like on a later stage. How to remove a backdoors? Yeah. So once your infrastructure gets hacked, I'm going to say, especially like if it gets hacked, like a more in deeper ways that attacker was able to compromise some really critical parts of your infrastructure. What we say that time, I wouldn't trust such infrastructure anymore. And once it's been breached, yeah. And what I do is just side by side implement new systems and start migrating data only. So no more executable files, no more applications, only data, and do like a clean installation. Regards the demo, okay, this is what's regards the Kali. Now I'm gonna show you as well another attack, which is man-in-middle attack. So in this diagram, we have 3 hosts. 2 are the computers and 1 is gateway on this diagram. And hosts are connected to the switch. And let's give a green color, yeah. So here like they are connected. Even attacker's computer is connected to a switch, yeah. And in normal situation, let's say that our victim's computer actually wants to access some emails, yeah, and emails they are out here on somewhere on the internet on some mail server. I'm gonna just try to draw an envelope, and we wish to access. So under normal operations, packet would actually travel, would start from victim's computer, okay, I'm not gonna say victim's computer, I would just say now from a computer to a network switch. This switch is gonna figure out it's intended to a gateway, so packets is gonna appear on other side, so it's gonna go from here to another side, and then it's gonna go through the gateway to the internet to the mail server. And then from there, actually packets is gonna travel all the way back to the first PC, yeah. And this is actually a normal operation how traffic, network traffic flows. But what happens when we put attacker's PC in between and it's gonna start actually doing ARP poisoning? So ARP poisoning is, in other words, it's going to lie the IP address and the MAC address. Actually, it's going to lie the MAC address of the virtual machine. So in other words, what that time would happen with the traffic, once we start poisoning the MAC for this computer and for this gateway, is the traffic is going to start floating through the attacker's PC, back to the gateway, and then to the internet. Once it actually starts traveling through our attacker's computer, this is where we can actually start scanning and sniffing the packets, yeah? And we can sniff a lot of things out like passwords, what users is opening, and so on. So I'm gonna switch back to our environment. And this time we're gonna use Windows computer. And this computer is actually in the same network than our victim, yeah? So it's in the subnet of 192.168.20. So if I open our tool, so it's Kane, what we're gonna do first, let's populate all the hosts. So I'm gonna say, hey, scan all the computers that you see out there. And once it finishes, we're gonna go to ARP and we are going to add the new poisoning route. So we're gonna select a gateway and our malicious, our victim's computer. And once this thing is done, we're gonna say poison. Now, what actually happens now, anything that we open, let's say I'm gonna use Firefox, is gonna go through our computer. So if I'm going to try to, let's say idilapa.com.au. If it's going to succeed. Well, let's leave it in behind the scene if it's going to wake up. However, like besides of this thing, we can start as well collecting some interesting things. And one of the most interesting things is about passwords. So here I have an email client, and this email client is configured that's gonna access our school email address. And once I'm gonna, let's say I'm gonna write email to myself. So one test email, send. Email went successfully out. But what happened at the same time, we were actually able to gather the password of email server. So this thing was our username, and this thing actually was our password for the mail server. And if we go something, let's say like FTP servers, if this guy is going to work, and it's asked for username and password. Let's have a look here. I'm just gonna say test. It's like our username, and here I'm gonna just type a password, although they're not correct ones. You can see that we were actually we gathered the attempt of this password, and this is like the easy way that we could collect all kind of important credentials, and this thing can be from websites. This thing can be from a file shares. It can be like a many of services that they are out there that we could collect. And user, most likely, they wouldn't even know that something like that is happening. Regards ARP, this is how it's been, how the protocol has been developed, and this thing hasn't changed for a very long time. Actually, it's hard to authenticate from which computer those MAC address is coming. It's really hard to protect your networks, meaning that any user that's out there and has installed those software, it actually can start sniffing on the network. Only solution to it is that we keep such users out there. So that means in your organization, as you have students, you don't let students that they ever end up in your staff network. This is very important that we separate networks between staff, between students, between management networks. Yeah. So this is the only more or less fix to it. There are software out there that they can determine if there's going ARP poisoning in your network, but because it's such a quiet way of doing it, is most likely you won't notice that this thing, that ARP poisoning example is happening within your network for quite a long time. So that's yeah, that's all about the live demonstration. Let's get back to the slides. We have only one or two. The last part as well of our webinar was a question how you can collect evidence for cybersecurity assessments. For practical assessment, after practical task is completed on Idilapa, students then click a button to mark the task is completed. Idilapa will automatically capture the evidence behind the scene. Yeah? And once a milestone is completed, the trainer will be able to access the progress of the evidence. If any tasks requires resubmission, trainer will notify the student to resubmit and provide feedback why. So when the unit is completed by student, all the collected evidence will be stored in Idilapa. And this collected evidence can be then exported and archived to your student management system. Also, Idilapa ensures the authenticity of students' work by encoding the student ID on the evidence and collects students' IP as well to validate that student was coming from the one location and that hasn't been done work by second student using first student's credentials. So this function, actually, what we're showing now on the screen about automated evidence collection, Idilapa is scheduled to be released in July this year. And yeah, looking forward to present you that time in the webinar on how to collect evidence on practical IT assessments. So yeah, that's all from me. Let me hand over back to Michelle.
Thanks, Matt, for the informative presentation. I hope you and your college find this information that Matt shared today is useful. And if you have any questions in regards to what Matt shared today, feel free to send us an email. In regards to the Idilapa technology itself, you can send the email to Matt directly. And if you like to know, if you like to offer IT learning activities and resources through Idilapa to your students, or to offer IT courses online using Idilapa, or simply just want to see more of the Idilapa demonstration suitable for your curriculum, or just want to get a quote for Idilapa, do feel free to contact me on michelle.lee@idilapa.com.au. So once again, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next webinar. Thank you. Bye, everyone.